Good day. Welcome to the module Communication Internship 395. What we're going to do today is take a look at what communication is and effective tools you can use to become a better communicator. So let's start with the first thing is, what is communication? And communication goes back to the Latin word communicare, which means to make common to many or to share. So based on that root, communication is the process of sharing thoughts, ideas, feelings in ways that we can understand, common ways. So it's about common sharing. When we get a little bit more deeper into it, it's the process of sending and receiving messages that convey something, whether that be information, ideas, feelings, beliefs, but it's a series of actions that the sender and the receiver of the message follow a path, if you will. It's really got 6 elements. It's the sender, the message, the channel, the receiver, how it's interpreted or translated, and then feedback. And this communication applies to all sorts of different types of communication. Types of communication are verbal communication, nonverbal communication, written communication. Each one of them is delivering that message. How it's delivered and how it's received can be perceived very differently. So let's keep going and look at the communication process. In this case here, a sender encodes a message, sends it through a channel or medium, which is what we just looked at, verbal, nonverbal, written, and the recipient decodes it and then provides feedback, encodes it, goes through the channel, and within the channel there's a lot of barriers. Then it's decoded in the sender. So if this is the process of how it works, let's just keep digging down a little bit. So let's just build this up a little bit. So you have information input. What I mean, the message, coding, the channel, speaking, writing, graphics, video, etc. Some things we have in common. And then decoding. Yep, what I understand. Behavior are the output. But oftentimes, what we say and what we mean is not always what's understood. Okay? I am sure every one of you have seen that with text messages. Text messages have just made this situation more exasperated because we don't have all the context. They're short blurbs that we do. So the message is oftentimes misinterpreted. When we look at that, I would say, I know that you believe you understand what you think I said, but I'm not sure that you realize that what I said is not what I meant. What I'd like to look at now is some of the reasons that communication can be difficult, where sometimes the message sent is not the message that's received. I wouldn't say it's a barrier to communication, but what I would say is there's different things that in how we communicate in our background that influence how the message is received. Well, if I yell at you, what are you going to think? Or if I talk very slowly. I could use jargon. I could use words such as, well, if you didn't use 482C2, TDA, DDA, CLN, AutoCAD, you don't know what that means. So sometimes we got to be cautious of both of these. An age difference, how you may talk to a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old isn't going to be the same as you talk to a senior. And if you think about that, how we always deal with babies. Oh, isn't that baby cute? A cute baby. Lack of knowledge about the message. So if I were talking to you about technical analysis on equities and talking to you about simple 50-day moving averages, 200-day moving averages, the difference between using a simple moving average and an talking to you about technical analysis, talking to you about moving averages, 50-day moving averaging, 2 average, convergence, divergence, relatively strength. You don't know anything about that. We could have different religions, sometimes our religious beliefs, our values. Everybody defined in the last module what your core values are. They may not all be the same. The lack of interest. I really don't care. How many times have you talked to somebody with what they're talking about? You really don't care. The speed of the dialect, how fast we were talking, that makes a difference. Did you understand what I was saying? Or if I go really slow. The emotional state. I think that's important also. If we're angry about something, we're not going to be as receptive to opening things up if we were just hurt. Verbal message differs from the nonverbal message. So we're talking, and it's a beautiful day out there, and I'm thinking I would rather be outside than being with you. It doesn't. What did I just do? I wasn't looking at you. I wasn't doing eye contact. Unwillingness to learn. I've got my mind up. Don't confuse me with the facts. In fact, I think this is something we're seeing quite a bit of in society today. We really don't want to do that. The message is boring. Okay? To some degree, that's about the lack of knowledge or lack of interest. But sometimes you can deliver things in an effective way. I'm sure everybody has sat through a lecturing class that was incredibly boring. Why? It wasn't effective. Different political views. It indicates how we perceive things, our upbringing, our education, what we've seen. If you've traveled the world, you have a different perspective. Okay? When you try to talk to someone who doesn't speak your native tongue, and you're trying to use their native tongue, things get confusing. But I think if you work at it, it works its way through. So I think we need to realize that there are certain barriers that do get in the way of communication. Now, what I want to do for the next piece of this is to recognize skills that are necessary for effective team communication. We all work within teams, and hopefully apply these behavioral skills, interactive behavioral skills, within a team or group setting for you to be successful in your internship. And if you remember the first module, everybody talked about communication. So now let's talk about some very specific applied skills. First, though, a learning model is awareness. If we become aware of behaviors that result in ineffectiveness, we got to become aware. Next step is we recognize them, and that's how we learned. We learn through study and skills. Practice is then consciously behaving or engaging in this new behavior or skill. And finally, that you have mastery. You unconsciously apply it. So if you think, you become aware, you recognize, you practice in mastery. That's how we learn just about everything in life. So let's keep going here. There's a non-active listening model. Message sent. Okay, there's the message. It's going, and it gets there. It's a non-active listening. We're simply providing information. How you're interpreting is different. And that's essentially what we're doing right now. This is a non-active listening model, unless I can figure out how I'm going to tie you back in. And I'm working on that. We then have the active listening model, where the message sent and there is this loop that happens. So there's a feedback to make sure that the message sent is the message received. And that requires active listening. Within a group situation, we have a couple of what we'll call skills that can be used, and they include initiating skills, clarifying, reacting, and process skills. And the first one of process is bringing in and shutting out. What we're going to take a look at now are some of the skills that we can use to have more effective communication, especially within a group or a team. So we're going to start with, there's initiating, clarifying, reacting. Then there's process skills, bringing in and shutting out. let's start with initiating. When we look at initiating behaviors, we're proposing something. So you want to start. I think we should do this. So it's starting something, a proposal, initiate. Then building. And when we're building, how do we take an idea and build on it? Okay? And I think we might use the word brainstorming, but how do you take a good idea and make it a great idea? Because the greatest obstacle to a great idea is a good idea. We tend to immediately say, oh, that's great. We don't always develop it. So for effective group work, you got to propose something to start, and then build on it. We're going to do a little bit of that as we move forward too. So that's proposing and building. Now, when we the benefits of that is that there can be many ideas, creates enthusiasm, and it gets us very future orientated. What should we be doing? If you don't have enough of these skills in a discussion, you can be bogged down. Limited numbers of ideas, and we tend to check out or become bored. If we have too many, we're all over the place. We're throwing too many ideas out, and nothing seems to move forward, and it's confusing. So what we want to try to do with these initiation skills of a discussion is to propose, build them so we can go deeper, so that we can have multiple ideas. We want to be enthusiastic. When we're doing something, if we're not enthusiastic and our heart's not in it, it really doesn't work. But have that future orientated. So that's our initiating skills. The next is our clarifying behaviors. I have found this personally to be very effective. And some of you, from interacting with me, have seen me probably do this. And the first thing is informing. I'm telling you something. So I'm informing, I'm presenting facts, I'm presenting details. Then there's inquiring, where I'm asking questions to go deeper. Next one is very important, testing my understanding. And this is where you send a message, you're talking, having a discussion, you've informed me, I've asked questions, and then I want to test my understanding. Is this what I heard you say? So if we come back on that, this is one of the most clarifying things that we can do, is test our understanding. Is what is being said, what is being heard. Then there's summarizing. Okay, now let's summarize what's going on. I'm summarizing that the steps that we're going to take are this, and that. Then there's sensing. And sometimes if we use certain words, I sense you're not following me very clearly. Is there more information that you may need? So informing, inquiring, testing understanding, summarizing, and sensing. So this is we're presenting information, informing, we're inquiring to go deeper to make sure we got it. Then we test our understanding. When you're doing an interview, somebody's asked you a question, and you didn't really hear it well or understand it. Instead of saying, what did you say? It might be easier to say, let me test my understanding. Is this what you're looking for? Summarizing, sensing. And then when we're informing, sometimes it's good to say inform, but when it becomes an opinion, and don't confuse facts with opinion, is, in my opinion, I think that's telling somebody it's an opinion instead of facts. So we want to look at those clarifying behaviors. Benefits, mutual understanding. We got each other. We'll really start focusing on the issues and an exchange. If we don't have enough, we have decisions that are made very quickly and aren't thought through. Discussion can be disorganized. Groups can break out in different pieces. Too many, again, discussion stuck on minor details. How do we move beyond the minutia to focus on the 20% of activities that give us 80% of the results? Lots of time with little progress. So there are clarifying skills. The next one is reacting. And every time we work in a group or when we have discussions with others, we often react. And I'd like to break this down into two categories. We can support or we can disagree. When it's supporting and disagreeing, we focus on the facts, okay? And individual feelings. So supporting and disagreeing. It's okay to disagree. I disagree with you because I think, okay, in my opinion, I disagree with you. It's a very fact-based as opposed to an emotional response. And one of the things that we can also react, and these are attacking and defending. And that's when you attack someone. And you might say, you're the stupidest person ever. That's so bad. If you had a high IQ, this wouldn't happen. You have a low IQ. It becomes about the person and not the issue. It's an attack. And then it's defending is how we react. So instead of disagreeing, we oftentimes find ourselves defending. Okay? I don't have a low IQ. You do. And we move away from the facts. And sometimes another example, if you think of this at home, when you were younger, your mom would say, you never clean up your room. You never help around the house. And you will say, yes, I did. I did that last week. And it becomes this back and forth. It becomes about the person. Now, it's easy to get sucked into that. I will do that at the same time. I'm working hard to support and disagree. But think about an attack from a perspective of a bow and arrow. Where do the feathers point? To the sender. So that's where we want to focus, is the attack is more about the sender than the receiver. So if somebody attacks you for something or another, I would say we could work our way backwards and say, was there enough informing, inquiring, testing, summarizing, sensing? So we do have these, and this can get in the way of effective communication. The benefits, fosters open discussion, helps get information out. If somebody disagrees and they have a reason for that, and we listen, it may be good. But as soon as you switch over to the attacking, that's not getting us. And let people know what others are thinking. And using the different words, okay? Agreeing, disagreeing, supporting. Let people know. Now, if there's not enough of these, discussions feel closed, repetitive. Perception of the decisions I've already made. Why do you want me to be in this group or be on this team when you've always decided? I have been asked on teams over the many years, and I feel many times they know what they want. So why are you bringing me in when you already have the answer you want? Are you trying to create legitimacy? If there's too much of this going on, especially in the attacking and defending, it becomes emotional. Nothing gets done. Conflicts are there, and oftentimes misunderstanding. So those are the reacting skills. And oftentimes attacking and defending create barriers to active listening. So the message sent doesn't come through. One of the things that helps is feedback. And that's a two-way street, a loop that allows us to get feedback. And feedback uses these interactive behavior skills that I said. When you're giving somebody feedback, choose the right time. Rely on facts. Speak for yourself. Don't exaggerate. Don't label or use judgments. Use statements and not questions. The right time is if you're running out. If I'm with if I want to give you feedback, I don't want to just catch you in the hall. Rely on the facts. Speak for yourself. In my opinion. Don't exaggerate. When you use I did that a few minutes ago and said, yes, you never clean up your work. Well, your room. Well, of course you do sometimes. I didn't mean that. So be focused. Don't label or judge. And use statements, not questions. So that's how we get it. How do we receive it? Is by being open and using these clarifying skills. Let me test my understanding. Is this what you're saying? Can improve that tremendously. There's another skill, the process skills of bringing out and shutting out. When you're in a meeting, sometimes you'll have people or a group working in a team that you have somebody that's not participating. You might say, hey, can I bring them in? Say, John, we haven't heard from you yet. Could you share your thought? On the other hand, sometimes you have people that monopolize the conversation. And you might say, thank you, Paul. Let's bring in some other opinions. So I think that's an important tool, especially if you're trying to keep something focused. Benefits, again, group participation from all these ideas are many. No one dominates the meeting. The meeting is very focused. If there's not enough of this, it's domination and control. Everybody doesn't contribute, just sit there. And then you get distracted. Like I could pick up my phone and get into that. We're seeing that more. So you got to say, if you're with a team or a meeting and everybody keeps picking up and using their phone and are texting, why is that? Is everybody participating, etc.? Too many, high anxiety. Sometimes you interrupt people when they're on the flow and nothing gets done. So this gives you a sense. I have this little chart here, meeting assessment guide, and I think it might be interesting if you are part of meetings is to use this. It's one option for our reflection for this is to use this. And if that assessment talks about clarity, people confused about what was decided, what potential IBS skills cause that? Do we have low testing of our understanding and summarizing? Was defending and attacking present? Was there low inquiry? People rely on assumptions, not facts. We lose track of the discussion. Weak closure, we don't really know what we're going to do next. And emotions interfering with logical thinking. We're seeing this more today than I ever remember. Too many unprocessed things in our mind. Structure. Discussions are pulled in several different directions. Again, lots of content proposals, low building. You had a lot of ideas, but we didn't build up on that. Few real solid procedural proposals. Low clarifying, low reacting, high informing, confusion about direction. Now, let's move on to our reflection on communication. The first is question 1. What was the message? So now, you might want to use the clarifying tool summarizing to summarize what the message received by you from this discussion was. But before you can do that, you may need to use other clarifying skills. Do you have inquiries? Do you need more information before you respond? Do you agree? Do you disagree? If so, email, or we can talk or text, whatever form of communication is best for you. Question 2 is feedback. After watching the video, and you've watched some of my videos before, what feedback do you have for me on what I said and how I said it? What could I do better? Question 3, assess a meeting. We all participate in meetings. I'm going to try to do the same thing. Use the meeting assessment form for a meeting you will be participating in. Then define what skills could be used to make it better. The last question is, we've all been attacked. And I think about this now and then, but think of the last time you were attacked. How did you respond? What could have been done different? So that's the reflection. Hopefully this is useful. I've tried to learn from this as much as you. So if you have any questions, do let me know.